Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome, everyone. It is March the 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. If you're celebrating out there, be safe. And if you're with us here, we would love to hear your insights and wisdom to the questions that are being posted by the members. Sometimes we have a panel. Sometimes the wisdom comes from the panel, and I've seen sometimes the wisdom comes from somebody posting a response online. So we would love to hear what anyone has to say online. Deeply grateful for all the help and support that all of you provide. Welcome. Let's join our panel and see who all is available. So we have Louise, our author and spiritual teacher. Good evening, Louise. And we have Kelly, who has joined us, our Qigong teacher. Good evening, Kelly. And after a very long time, I think you've done a few Facebook Lives with us, Ryan, last year. So you've joined today. Ryan, go ahead and introduce what all you do, because I know you've branched off into quite a few activities, Ryan. So if you want to give a brief introduction. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
What do? I don't know. I can barely keep up. Lots of different things, gratefully. But one of which, virtual reality. I've been really involved in VR, teaching meditations, workshops, kind of helping build a spiritual community in virtual reality. Let's see what else. So I'm a mentor. I'm a presence mentor. Help others, with their presence practice. And I also help moderate Eckhart's communities, his website and Facebook and all of that. Some other things too, but yeah, just being of service wherever I can.
We love it. I know quite a few members join your meditations. I know Louise one day last week or the week before had appreciated, last week, right, Louise? You liked his meditation, and I ended up posting it to our group as well. So I know quite a few members join your meditations. Indra joins your meditation, right? So they enjoy it immensely. So one of the things I would offer to the community members, if you don't have a presence practice, then you can always find Ryan as timer, and go look on the top of this Facebook group page. There should be something called guides, and there's a meditation section in the guides, and I've posted Ryan's information in there so that everybody can always find that information. Along with that, on the guides up above, the Facebook group page, in the guides is presence to movement. So I have Kim Ing's Qigong DVD download link. And then I've also posted information about Kelly's Qigong. So today, I actually found a question after we logged off our live. There was a question by Jason. So I posted that on the chat. Everybody can see it, right? Louise and Kelly and Brian. So this is what Jason asks. How can someone stuck in the trappings of negative energy, attractive fields, be free of it completely? It seems negativity is stuck deeply imprinted into my subconscious mind, though often I'm not aware of it. I feel I must heal this on the causal plane to uproot the poison. So how can someone stuck in the trappings of negative energy, attractor fields, be free of it completely? It seems negativity is stuck deeply imprinted into my subconscious mind, though often I'm not aware of it. I feel I must heal this on the causal plane to uproot the poison. Ryan, since you're about to leave in earlier for us, I'll let you start so that you get more time in the beginning of the session.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you again for having me. Yeah, trapped in the negative energy. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is just that he mentioned, the questioner mentioned often not being aware of it. I think that's kind of really the beginning, or of where the root of healing all of this is just bringing more and more awareness into when the negativity arises. And in that sense, um, doing so in present moment too is very important. So like check in right now. Like, okay, maybe you have a repetitive pattern of kind of falling into negativity, but right now, how do you feel? Right, just kind of checking in and settling into the breath, into the body. If you can notice any negativity in you in this moment, any sense of resistance, restriction, this would be the very the very nature of the practice of bringing awareness into it. So, okay, it's there. And then the other thing is, if when you do become aware of negativity, it's also important to watch how you respond when you become aware of negativity inside. Naturally, we kind of like want to avoid it. We want to change subject, change the channel, distract ourselves, or find something tasty or to drink or whatever. But instead, if you can notice that negativity and notice the feeling and then give it your presence, give it your attention and let it be there, like allow it to be there rather than trying to get rid of it, trying to make the negative energy into positive energy. Just allow the negative energy. And so you're actually allowing the resistance, which can kind of help soften it. And from there too, I think the other big piece here is like this sort of getting out of the negative energy that we've absorbed throughout our life. It's a bit of a practice, and I think it's helpful to kind of be gentle with ourselves and to also take away the time pressure of feeling like we've got to heal it all immediately, and I've got to be enlightened completely. I mean, there is, enlightenment is the end of suffering, and yet I've found so much of this practice is learning how to honor suffering when it arises. And when I think one of the helpful things is to pull out that idea that like we need to hurry or we need to have it all cleared out immediately, and instead just like honor where we are, honor it, kind of not welcome it, but accept it. And bringing in that welcoming energy actually kind of speeds up the process, ironically. uh, so yeah, just being mindful of that time pressure that might be in the background of like, oh, I need to get rid of this negativity. And then the other thing is, again, it's like coming back to now. Do you feel the negativity now? If not, beautiful. Then just enjoy your peacefulness, your presence. And this way, our mind can kind of be like, oh, I need to clear out all the negative stuff. It's in the future. It's like, okay, well, if you're staying here now, you'll be here when the negativity does come back in. Whereas if you're trying to be like, oh, how do I clear all this stuff? And you're not being present now, then you're probably not going to notice it when it does actually come in. So yeah, I think this is where like awakening is like this healing process. It's a gradual progress. It's not like you figure out one thing and then it all just clicks and you're done. No more pain body, no more ego. There are rare cases, but for myself and for everyone I know, it's a gradual process. So we just keep working with where we're at. But that important question of coming back to, okay, how do I feel now? And if there's negativity, be with it. If there's joy, then of course, enjoy it.
Thank you, Ryan. What do you think of? I know even Kim Eng has said that I don't know if she did it during School of Awakening in 2019. She said, like, for all of us, it's like a continuous daily practice. Like Eckhart may have had a fireworks kind of moment and he can be in presence, but for us to maintain presence, we have to work at it every day, do the practice every day. And I'm sure she spends a lot of time in meditation, in solitude, doing her Qigong practice, her yoga practice. every day. That's how she brings her presence power. So some of this negativity probably will dissolve if they took up a practice, right? Like a tool of meditation, like you offer meditation, so they could probably have that option, join your meditation, experience it. So the tools that today's human being can use is what Eckhart says, the portals of presence, right? Breath work, meditation, communing with nature, and music. There's certain types of music that bring stillness. And he has a couple of CDs, Quiet the Mind, and uh, there's something on stillness too, because I have that music downloaded, and that helps. So beautiful. Thank you for that insight. And I think I forgot to nobody needs an introduction to Eileen. She does an incredible job keeping us together. So I totally, my apologies, Eileen, for not introducing you today.
No, it happened for a reason because I was having technical difficulties on the Facebook page. So
You were?
yes, it allowed me to focus on trying to fix that. I was like, she's going to introduce me, and I'm not even on Zoom right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. I'm deeply grateful for your help week after week, and you're always consistently, you've been here for the past year. So there's not any person that is more grateful than I for your presence. Thank you. Louise, did you want to speak to the negativity?
Well, the first thing that came to me is that what I think is a lot of people don't realize is that it's a process. Like as we're going through this journey, we uncover different things that come up, and it doesn't mean that we've gone backwards, or like Ryan was saying, that it has to be dealt with immediately. And I think, I've noticed there's been almost like stages that I've gone through. And I think when there's something like, negativity or something like that, that's, you have to deal with it. You have to like look at that and find out where it's coming from. And instead of just trying to think, well, I'm supposed to be enlightened and I shouldn't feel this way or what have you. But what I've noticed is when I really like investigate or really look at where this is coming from, then it just pretty much it goes away because I'm dealing with it. And so it doesn't have to come up again. And so then you go to the next step and the next step. And there's just always, I think, just the important thing to realize is there's always things that we will have to work on, and to just accept that and understand that it works itself out. Whatever it is that you don't have to do so much doing. Look at it, investigate it, sit with that, and then it just turns into, it goes away like magic almost. But there are those little things that you have to look at and figure out where it's coming from so it doesn't come back to bite you again. So those are the things that came up for me.
Thank you, Louise.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, did you want to speak to being negative?
Well,
being
absolutely.
a super attractor of negativity.
Well, this is a really interestingly phrased question. I find the language very interesting because it speaks to someone who is both embedded in a lot of conceptual information. I really like what Ryan and Louisa said about how this process and the journey is very continuous. I completely agree with Ryan where, we live in a culture, our modern culture, where we have this, idea that, we can get something, we can like get somewhere and we can like be done with like all that stuff. When it comes to spiritual evolution, there is no end to the refinement. There is a constant journey. There's different layers and levels of it. And the trappings of negative energy attractor fields, as in, I'm guessing, I'm going to shot in the dark here, but the patterns and the programming of the ego and of, the fear-based mind patterns, I'm guessing is what this person is talking about. The simplest thing, as Ryan pointed out and Louise pointed out and Punam, you pointed out, is to have a practice. There is no one answer for everybody, although stillness, comes really close, because that's like inside everything, inside the practice of presence, inside the practice of meditation and mindfulness across the board. Everyone has negativity that they have to deal with. The question poses or postulates that it seems negativity is stuck deeply imprinted in my subconscious. Everyone has patterns in their subconscious that they have to look at. And when you look at a pattern, ego programming, shadow programming, reptilian, emotional defense mechanisms, whatever you want to call it, when you look at it and you expose yourself to seeing it and to feeling it and to being present with that space, with that negativity, with that projection, with that fear, with the anxiety, when you let yourself actually look at it, you change it. Your ego and your shadow and your emotional defense mechanisms do not like having the light shone on them. The ego does not like being exposed to the light of reality and the light of awareness. So when you expose yourself to that space, which is really the choice here, the decision, the action, when you expose yourself to that light of consciousness, that light of awareness, being present with yourself, you change the pattern. You will change the program. And it will take time. Sometimes, again, last week I brought up the difference between Rinzai and Soto Zen schools of Buddhism. The Rinzai school is about the sudden awakening, and the Soto school is about that even sort of steady progress. My experience is that it's usually a combination of both, where you work and work and work and work and work, and you build discipline and you build awareness, and then suddenly you have everything just sort of like fall into place, and a whole bunch of stuff changes because you built up that practice. And this is why having a personal practice is so important, be it meditation, jogging, for myself, it's Qigong, martial arts. My experience has shown that it really does not matter what practice you choose. What matters is the discipline and building the momentum with it and supporting your journey that way. Having the consistency of being present with yourself, of being mindful of your thoughts, your feelings, your words, and your actions, and how they relate back to those spaces and the origins of your motivation, and whether or not there's fear there or love. To me, it's that basic and also that complex, which is why we have all these questions all the time, because the way that fear and love interplay, and the way your ego and fear love to mess with your mind and cause confusion and anxiety and doubt, especially doubt. I mean, the one thing that anyone who takes up a practice can be certain of is that your practice will change you, and you will change with your practice. And the more you discipline yourself and are consistent with your practice, the more you'll heal yourself, the more you'll become aware of yourself, the stronger you'll get. But it takes time. And whether or not it's, this immediate 3D causal plane of reality that is the source or the origin of something that is poking at you, or whether or not we've been carrying something for several reincarnations, embodiments, if you will, if people are so inclined to go in that direction. What matters is being present with oneself, is allowing oneself to be vulnerable with what we're feeling, to look at what we're feeling, to accept it, and to let yourself feel and have the courage to accept whatever comes up, and to know that in your heart, you are love and you are loved. And no matter what comes up, whether not as pain or fear or judgment, unless it is love, it is not who you are. Because deep down, all of us are created and are connected to source and are part of creation. And creation has no judgment, has no mental constructs of illusion in it. And that is the whole point of a presence practice, mindfulness practice, and being aware of oneself at the purest level of it. And just understanding that we are love, and that is what we return to.
Thank you, Kelly. And the programming, I think, to get an insight into the programming, I would say read chapter 4, chapter 5 of A New Earth, because chapter 4, I mean, you can do chapter 3 as well, because it shows a lot of the egoic patterns, but chapter 4 goes into roles, and chapter 5 goes into the pain body, and chapter 5 is the crux, because it will show you all the collective patterns, whatever your ancestry is, what are the generational patterns, the collective patterns, what Eckhart calls the conditioning, the past conditioned patterns. The negativity is not, don't personalize the negativity. We picked it up. There's a collective mind, and the collective mind, because of where we were born, we come up with a certain amount of negativity anyway, because we were born in a certain country, we belong to a certain race. Kelly and I have talked about it. Debbie Ford has this short movie on YouTube called The Shadow Effect. It will show you the shadows. Like if you're of German origin, what is your shadow? If you're Palestinian or Lebanese, right? What is your, if you're Jewish, what is your shadow? So she shows all the different parts. It's not a single human being. Like you cannot say only people in the US have a pain body, or only people in India have a pain body. It's planet-wide, right? So, and she goes very deeply into what is the shadow, is that part that we don't see, that Ryan and Louise and Kelly are talking about, shining the light on it, right? Eckhart has this talk called Vigilance on the website. It is like the perfect, that's exactly what he says, is be vigilant, observe your patterns. Go ahead, Ryan. Thank you. Oh,
Your
putting up a
microphone's
thing.
off. Yep.
Check.
There we go.
Ah.
There we go.
I was just mimicking like a monk, like keep watching, watch right now.
Yes. Yes. And Eckhart has a funny story about it, right, Ryan? Like a Zen monk would hold up his hand. So one of the little boys would hold up his hand, and the Zen monk took the boy in the kitchen and cut off that finger. Eckhart said that was the story.
I haven't heard that one. That sounds intense.
Because he has that Zen monk, right? Observe your mind, and he would hold up his hand. be present. And so the kid was imitating him. That's what Eckhart said. So that's another satori, right? To
It's like
No.
wearing the shoe on the head.
yes. Eileen, do you have something to say? Thank you, Kelly. Um,
I was just
about
going
negativity.
I was just going to add on, it was kind of in when Ryan was talking, right? And then you ended up saying something that was kind of what I was going to say right after he spoke. Was I think it is important to get that practice. So, like, just speaking from personal experience, I very similar. So, like, I would be very negative. Did never really realized it, but looking back, very much so. And I remember people used to say, like, well, just be positive, just be positive, just be positive. And when you're in that state, that is not what you want to hear at all. But as soon as I started my meditation practice and really got that in a place where it was consistent, and that was kind of what I was putting first, even though it was very small in the beginning, 15 minutes a day. That's when I could see it. Like, I could see that pattern, and then that pattern doesn't really exist anymore, or very rarely. And so I do think that that's extremely important. It's just like Ryan was saying, like sitting with it, not pushing it away, but like being with it. And the best way for me, at least, was doing that through my practice.
Thank you. Thank you for reiterating. Practice, 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 right? That's what dissolves the patterns. That's where we can observe the pattern. So we have another question. Thank you, Eileen. Did you want to read that question from Steve?
Sure. So in my enlightenment and meditation training, I usually jump from one book to another, especially if I can't wrap my head around a certain subject, and it gives me that heavy feeling. So I go to east and west. Is that heavy feeling can be categorized as something negative? So I think she's asking that, is it that feeling that would be considered negative?
So in conjunction with that, I also have another question that Jason posted. He says, I'm in the process of awakening now, currently. I'm Catholic, but I discovered Eckhart Tolle's books and A Course in Miracles. Now, I'm not sure what to do about religion. So I think that's the conflict, right? What to do about religion is the question. Good evening, April. Thank you so much for making it and joining us. Yay.
Are you able to hear me? Because there's somebody who's saying that they can't hear me, but are you able to hear me when I was speaking?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Luis, did you want to get started on Cecile and this question about not sure what to do about religion?
Well, again, what I have found is that as you go, do this practice and you go deeper and deeper each time, and you practice throughout the day. It's not just one time you do a meditate. If you're doing this practice throughout the day, a lot of answers come to you, and you don't really need to. I think a lot of times we think we have to find the answers or, do a lot of work or what have you, but like, you just find your way, you find your way to what is the truth. Like I was raised Catholic, and then I moved to California, and I became a part of a non-denominational Christian church where it was like, I was very involved. Like we went to church on Wednesday nights, we had Bible study on Thursdays, church on Sunday was like 4 or 5 hours because we do the, each time after church, we do a picnic and this, that, and so then we did things where what they call discipled others. So like the older Christians would have other younger Christians that we discipled. And so we met with them every week. And so, a lot of this, I could say is conditioned and part of who I am, or, have a lot of thoughts behind it, but I just really trust the process and just let things work itself out. And so then it's not really an issue anymore. And I just believe that, this person, the more that they practice this and the more they go inside, they will find the answer to what they feel is the truth about religion or the way they were brought up. And then they can decipher whether it's a limiting belief or belief from another past life, or belief that they made up in their own mind. Those things just work themselves out.
Thank you, Louise. Somebody asked Eckhart during the A New Earth webcast with Oprah as well, that she would feel guilt. Like if she didn't go to church, right? She would feel guilt. So the conditioned pattern of that we have to, when Sunday comes, we have to be in church or else we are doing something wrong. If you're not in church Sunday morning for Sunday morning service, then there's something wrong with us. If we label ourselves as Christian, then the guilt arises, right? And guilt is a favorite strategy. So how do you feel? Do you go to church every Sunday? I mean, do you maintain that practice?
No, because I think that, you evolve into what what you feel is the truth changes, like when I was, being raised Catholic, that was very much like if you didn't go to church, you weren't devoted enough, you didn't love God enough, you weren't, Catholic enough, if you didn't do, all the things that you're supposed to do, like baptism, and I don't even remember all the names, but then, and then when I switched, moved to California, and then I was, part of this Christian, non-denominational Christian church, it was kind of the same thing. Like, if you didn't go on Sunday, everybody was calling you and asking you why. And, like, oh, you could have still made it, even if the child is sick, you could have had somebody come and watch the child, and so there was a lot of pressure, to be at all those meetings. And, but like, the more and more that I've been on this journey, you just come to realize, like you were saying, that guilt is something that's what the ego or the mind starts to, bring up, it tries to distract you from what the truth is. And so that's why it's really important to like look at these things, like, where did I get this idea from? And is this true? And when you do those kind of things, they really do go away. Like they just work themselves out, and you're led into where you need to be and what is best for you. And so I just always think that, a lot of us here, especially on the panel, like preach about how important presence is, and being, with your true essence and knowing yourself, but you have to experience it yourself.
Thank you, Louise.
What you feel, inside.
Once we have that connection to source, that alignment with inner beingness, nothing else is needed.
Absolutely.
That's church, minute to present moment to present moment, present moment to present moment, and nothing else is needed.
Yes.
Right? Thank you. I know Ryan has to leave early because he has another meditation to attend. So I'm going to give the floor to Ryan.
Okay. Yeah, well, the first thing I just remember, I had this like mind-blowing realization of like, oh, this whole Eckhart practice is about life is church. Not, this idea of, oh, let me think about God one day a week. I mean, that's beautiful. But like, what about every day, every minute, like you said, every second, like being with God. And also like this reality shift of seeing that God is constantly, and God is one name for it. You might resonate with a different name, but that life, universe, reality is actually constantly working with me, teaching me and learning. And like, it's like not only church, it's also school. And part of the school is discernment, and trusting our own discernment, which is, I think, a really valuable and important thing for us to cultivate. But then to Cecile's question with jumping around, so there's two things I heard in this. One was it just kind of sounds like there's still a seeking. There's still like oh, this book didn't quite have what I was looking for, so where's the next one? And then here's the next one. And that's just something valuable to kind of be mindful of, to bring attention to, is that feeling of the next book will have the answer. Will have that, it's like that, like, I don't know, whatever it is that you might be seeking, like this sensation of, oh, I arrived. Oh, I made it. Oh, I'm finally in the present moment, or I'm finally enlightened, right? Ironically, it will always be right in front of you. If we hold that belief of, oh, it's after I get this thing done, and then this course, and then this book, we perpetuate it, just like we can perpetuate our happiness. We can actually also perpetuate our enlightenment. So for me, like, I remember, think The Power of Now, and I was reading it, it just hit me really clear. It's like, it's now, what we're seeking, really everything we're seeking is in this moment. And the next book could be helpful. The next course can be helpful, but only as helpful as you can really recognize the destination is here. This moment is it. Like Thich Nhat Hanh says, in every breath I arrive, or I arrive home. So to feel that sensation of deeply satisfied with this, and then you kind of, I don't know, for me, I've kind of lost this the seeking. I feel like I've already found, right? But that can only happen now. So just, I think it's an important thing to investigate that feeling. And then the other part in the question at the end was addressing a heavy feeling. And I get kind of excited when I hear someone mention a heavy feeling, only because for me, when I became aware of a heavy feeling, which it sounds like the questioner is aware of a heavy feeling, when you really go into that heavy feeling, huge transformations are underneath that. Regardless of what words you attach to it, if it's pain body or ego, or like, I know, like, I remember there was different like stages in working through my stuff. Like, I would approach this feeling and there was all this fear wrapped up inside it, or grief, or sadness, or resentment, or who knows. But in a way, it's like those heavy feelings are like very powerful opportunities for healing, and for even for like realizations, for aha moments that can then just clear away a huge obstacle that's been kind of tugging away in the background for most of our lives. So kind of similar to the first question with the negativity, it's like, okay, can you be aware of that heavy feeling when it arises? Is it here right now? If not, then when it arises next, really giving it the full attention. Breathe. I find breathing is really helpful for the heavy ones. And then also being mindful of thoughts that are coming in that might be attached to the heavy feeling. But even more so, I find it's even effective to kind of notice the thoughts, but then maybe even put the thoughts down and just be with the feeling itself. And then what happened to me a few different times, is it almost feels like a floodgate is opened. tidal wave of emotion just like all of a sudden like comes in, just woof, and it washes through, and it's intense, but it's incredibly powerful. Like it's beautiful at the same time. So um yeah, I think that's, you know, and if is it negative? I don't know. I don't think it's negative. I don't really think anything's negative, but I think I kind of hear with heavy feeling, I hear potential. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. I think I've heard Eckhart say, I don't know who it was, is it T.S. Eliot? It's a journey of zero distance. Once we know that we are already there, that's it. And to me, presence or God, all those words seem like way out there. I just absolutely adore the word alignment with inner beingness. We have an inner being that already is connected to source. It's just that we are not aligned with it. So the separation is what is causing all the heaviness, right? Whatever the feelings are. So it's just about getting aligned and all these doubts go away, right? The moment we get aligned, we feel connected to source. And it almost is like what Ryan was saying, that we are life, like it is now. And now is constantly, like one day April was saying, right? This now, when now it's the next now, right? The next now. I mean, the now just moves. So the correct word that Dr. Deepak Chopra uses is, we are not a noun, we are a verb. Because consciousness is just flowing through wherever in the timeless realm. Consciousness from the timeless realm is just coming through this, all these forms. And one of the forms is us. It's our job to be connected to it. And we can only be in that, in this now, right? Beautiful, Ryan. Thank you. And if you have to leave, I don't know, is it time for you to leave, Ryan?
I got about 5 minutes. I'll just
5
listen
minutes.
and kind of pop out
Okay,
when I
perfect.
need to. But thank you
Perfect.
for having
Thank
me.
you. We are honored. Thank you so much. Grateful for your guidance. Kelly, did you want to say something about Cecile's question? I know you will have a lot. And Jason says, well, about not sure what to do about religion. Thank you. And you're a person that broke away from your religion and are doing Qigong. So you're like a perfect example.
Oh, hey, yeah, you know, having a grandfather who was a Mennonite bishop, and one side of my family being Roman Catholic, on top of that, Irish Roman Catholic, happy St. Paddy's Day and all that. So yeah, there's quite a lot of friction when I first broke away into my own path and decided to investigate Buddhism and Taoism when I was a teenager. And I mean, I started doing Qigong and I cured myself of asthma and all my allergies and stuff like that. So I was going, all right, okay, this works. So like, what it's part of this culture. What's going on here? So, I got really, really curious and wanted to understand the context for the evolution of the practice of, moving blood in the body and healing the body through movement. So to address Cecile's question, I completely agree with Ryan's sort of take on the question, the seeking. I'd add to that jumping from book to book, or jumping from external point of reference to external point of reference, is not necessarily about going inside and being present with your alignment with yourself. And that is something to look at. I completely agree with what Ryan said in terms of how there seems to be a very strong urge to be seeking outside of self. And this is a normal stage of spiritual evolution. Everybody has to go through this. Everybody has to look for information outside of themselves. In Chinese martial arts, there's a saying, you're either a scholar or a boxer. And what this means is that you're either a scholar and you spend your time reading books, or you are a boxer and you train for the reality of dealing with reality. And training is what I decided to do. I had a huge library, would have filled up a couple walls in this basement here. And I basically realized, one of my friends that I was learning Bagua with basically said, well, what are you going to do? You keep reading your books, or you're going to train? I was just like, right. Yeah, right. Let's, yeah, good one. Put that back on the shelf. Stop looking at all the shiny, pretty books. So I train. And, if you're working on your practice of learning how to be present with self, sit and meditate. Do what it is that brings you into yourself, that brings you into alignment with your heart, that allows you that safe space to feel and to look inward. There is little else that compares to actually having that practice and that discipline in that space with self. And no book, no matter how amazing, can actually give it to you. And this is one of the things about books. They are great for information and have it as a point of reference, but all the work has to be done by yourself, and you have to spend time with yourself to learn how to be with yourself. It's sort of a catch-22 there, and in terms of the heavy feeling, very well said, Ryan, about how the potential when heavy feelings come up, experience the same thing. For me, heaviness is always a potential learning experience. It can mean a myriad number of things, but it's always really, really important to pay attention to those heavy feelings, because that energy of heaviness can mean, A, you're tired and you need to look at that, to put it simply, and B, your mind is actually trying, or your ego is actually trying to shut you down and not look at something, and that there's information there. And that is something that's one of the ways that I look at it. As well, heaviness is sometimes when information is trying to be released from the body, and your body gets tired and or your mind gets tired from just the energetic aspect of releasing the emotional, the mental space of actually connecting with the information and being present with the information. Sometimes for me, I'm like, Kate, I'm good, I'm done, stick a fork in me, I'm going to go have a nap, because my system needs to process this. It's like, I got nothing. It's like, I'm done. And that's my understanding of heaviness or heavy feelings. Again, very sort of like physically oriented in terms of my perception of heaviness in the body. Now to go to, was it Poonam, was it David? Jason, sorry.
The second part.
Yes, the second part. Letting go of religion. Well, yeah, having broken away from the Mennonite path or the Mennonite aspects of my family, the Mennonite traditions, never considered myself Mennonite. For those of you who do not understand, Mennonite is different than Hutterite or Doukhobor or shoot, I want to think Pennsylvania and Amish. There we go. The A word, the Amish. Different but very similar strains of Christian Protestantism, particularly the Anabaptist tradition, where you get baptized once you become an adult. Once you have accepted Jesus and once you've accepted the faith as your path, you get baptized. and on you go. Never considered myself a Mennonite, never considered myself really Roman Catholic, but I had these two presences in my life. And again, finding Qigong when I was a teenager, curing myself of asthma, just opened up this whole huge world of, there are all these other ideas out there. What? Oh my goodness. It's like, what do I do with this? It's like, well, I want to find out. I'm curious. However, I kept going to my grandfather's church. I kept going to, the feasts and, Easter and Christmas. I kept on helping, my grandfather every once in a while with things. And one of the things I have also come to understand about religion in the world is that it is a cultural phenomenon, and it is part of the cultural makeup of the global consciousness. So it's not something to reject, but to understand as how humans come together in community to try and understand reality and to support each other in understanding reality. Again, my perception and my experience has given me the perspective that religion plays a role in everyone's lives, and it's better to understand it and to have an appreciation for it than to reject it. And that if we reject something, then there's something there that we do not want to look at as well. So, something to think about, something to sort of contemplate. For myself, honestly, I feel really, really blessed to have grown up in my grandfather's church, because one of the primary things, one of the greatest gifts growing up in my grandfather's church gave me was the understanding of community and the blessing that a healthy and strong community can really be, regardless of what tradition, be it Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Baha'i, whatever tradition. I went and sought out other groups when I moved into the city, and Baha'i tradition was one of them. There's a really, really strong Baha'i community here in Winnipeg, and really strong Jewish community here as well. I've been to synagogue. I've been to Baha'i prayer sessions. I forget, they have a specific word for it. I cannot remember it off the top of my head. Investigating and understanding religion, the historical context, the cultural context, personal context, and the evolution of thought over the years and human culture, I've found to be really, really important in understanding my own path and my own choices in terms of investigating and discovering how to build my own methods of personal discernment for myself. So, while I broke away from Mennonite tradition and all that, and it's all learning, it's all information. Everything depends on how you want to look at it and how you want to observe it and use it as a way to understand yourself.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. I think the book reading, read one book and then read another book and then read another book. I don't know, Eileen and Louise may remember, we used to watch like this talk called The Mountain and the Valley. And towards the end of the talk, Eckhart says his mother had this pattern of, even when she was 80 years old and she was getting wrinkly, and she was identified with her looks. She was getting wrinkly and she would go, and her body was failing, which it does when you're 80, right? The body's going to start failing. She would go, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Right? So that is, and what I had said during group meditation is this, what do I do, is a pattern. And the what do I do almost is a jumping out of our body. We are not when we are doing meditation practice or have a stillness qigong practice or yoga practice, we are in our body. Like we are firmly in, like you can experience your inner body, like you're in your body. When Louise is saying that she can feel the connection to the source, don't you feel that, Louise? You're like in your body. You're so in your body. And all the thought activity. So what it's doing is you're reading something spiritual from the East, right? You're not in your body. You're in this, oh, there's an information out there. You're out there, right? Like you're in a, your consciousness is actually going thinking mind, and your thinking mind is grasping, right? You're grasping for something. Give me something that will make sense. And what happens is, now look at the ego, another subtle back in the background, it's going to come in and say, that's not Christian teaching. Look at your identification. Because I'm identified with this thought, I'm a Christian. Well, that's not Eckhart's teachings. Those are not Christian teachings. Why are you reading something? So the guilt will come. Then the second factor, like superimposed on the fact that you're saying I'm not Christian anymore, but if I'm reading Eckhart's or Dr. Deepak Chopra's book or Thich Nhat Hanh's book or any of the other authors, right? Who is not any new age, you do even Marianne Williamson. Like people will read a Course in Miracles, but refuse to read Marianne Williamson, who actually simplifies A Course in Miracles, right? Look at the identification of the human mind, how insane the human mind is. Insanity. This is total insanity to be identified that we are Christian or we are Hindu or we are whatever. And that's what happens is the more we do the practice, the insanity goes away and we are just presence to presence or beingness to beingness. We experience the other person's beingness. And that's it. That's all that is needed. I mean, I've had beautiful connect. I'll give one small example. So a couple of days back, I don't know why, everybody knows I love celery juice, right? Louise and I exchanged like pictures and all kinds of things about celery juice. So what I was thinking is, because of the pandemic and people having such bad health, that at some point in time, if I had enough money, then I would send food trucks out to every neighborhood, like all the poorer neighborhoods, any neighborhood, right? Go deliver a celery juice to everyone. Like you make the fat celery juice and deliver it to each home for free, right? I'm so passionate about celery juice. I had that image in my mind. Next morning, I look at my phone and Caesar says that he had a dream about eating celery. I had never mentioned, I mean, we talked like 5-6 months back about medical medium protocol, right, Louise? Like as part of nutrition on the Facebook Live, I have more connection around medical medium protocol with Louise than anybody else. I don't talk to anybody else. Louise and I constantly exchange information. So how did, of all people, Caesar pick up my thought activity and my intention of giving everybody's, and I think he's trying to buy the book Cleanse to Heal as well. So that is the connection. We don't even have to say a word. And that happens with everyone that we are connected to here in group meditation. I was waiting for Eileen to tell me some information, and I realized the next day I looked at my phone and she had already texted me that information, right?
Yeah, you're
It's
like, I was
that
just gonna. She's like, I was gonna text you asking about that.
exactly. It's like same thing with Gracie. It happens that I'm waiting for her, and the moment she texts, I would have picked up. I ignore my phone throughout the day because I'm focusing on my job. And suddenly I'll pick up the phone, and right then Gracie will say something, or Louise will say something, and I'll actually be able to respond. That is the connection when we are connected to source, that we don't have to say anything. Louise didn't have to call me and say, hey, can you answer this? It's instantaneous, telepathic, that Louise is asking something and I pick up the phone. That's intuition, right? And that's what I love about this. It's not so much as Eckhart's teachings, it's the other extrasensory perception, the telepathic information that is happening, that gets me more excited about the presence practice or the alignment with inner beingness more than anything else. And then I was hearing something about fifth dimension, sixth dimension. So that's another possibility as well. So beautiful. Thank you, Kelly. So that's where the heaviness starts. The heaviness is the guilt on, like, you're going out, you're not inhabiting your body, you're out there looking at books, and then here's the guilt and the shame of not being Christian. And we just have to graduate to the level as we keep practicing. One day the shame goes away, the guilt goes away. We realize it's just a thought. Thank you very much, Kelly, for that pointer. Eileen, did you want to say something about, I don't think you follow any church, so you'll be a perfect person to say, I'll dissociate.
I do not, and I have not. So that's not something I can really connect or comment on, but I have heard in the last, couple of years just about, I guess because I grew up in a very Catholic town, even though we were not, and all of my friends went to Catholic school. It was the only public school family in our neighborhood. Everyone went to Catholic school. And so it was, for me, it was a little refreshing when I was reading Eckhart Tolle initially, I think it was the Power of Now book, actually, to hear the way he was talking about it in different terms. And then it was like, people had always talked about, spiritual practice and different things, and I was very confused by it. But now, after reading those books, I was like, I am a very spiritual person, but I don't believe in a single person kind of a thing. And so I very much enjoyed reading his books for that reason. Just kind of gave me a very different perspective based on, kind of what people kind of always said to me, even though it wasn't my family. It was more my neighbors, friends.
That's a lot of pressure, just
Yeah.
like Louise says. Thank you. April, I know you waited for a long time. What I would say is, can you answer both questions, all those questions, and read the very last one as well that nobody has answered yet, the one on the shadow?
No pressure, Poonam. No pressure. Right?
That's what happens if you join late.
Right. That's what happens. No, I've been listening, and I think I've kind of am understanding what the question was. And I think that it's been answered. It's been addressed. It is a process. That is for sure. This is a process. So they're saying I am now awakening. I am currently awakening. So therefore, it's a process of all of a sudden I've got this new information that kind of feels like it resonates more. It makes more sense. And that's the one thing that I say frequently is I never understood why I was being sent to hell. I just couldn't understand that. It never made sense to me how I was such a bad person per se. So I think that that's what's happening here. And all of the dogma, the rules to the religion is what doesn't make sense. If the religion didn't have all the rules, then perhaps there wouldn't be this dichotomy. There wouldn't be this conflict, right? You can't listen to music. You can't wear dresses certain length. You can't do this with your hair. You can't. And humans, souls, we are meant to be free. We are meant to be free. And religion doesn't allow that. And that's where this conflict comes in. And then, I believe it was late 1400s, early 1500s, Rene Descartes, is that his name? Yes, he changed the Bible. He changed the Bible and it was separated. And it very much was changed to make you believe that you had to rely on the church, the pastors, the preachers for your salvation. All of the parts of the Bible were missing, numerous books in the Dead Sea Scrolls. All of those parts, if you put them back in, you learn that you don't need somebody else to connect to source. And that's one thing that as you do read Eckhart's book and you read the Course of Miracles, more and more the truth of, I have this right here. I have this right here within me. I don't need a church. I don't need a mosque. I don't need that. I don't need to go to these places or do these things because it's right here. And I can get this in my living room. I can get this outside by the tree. I can get it in Walmart if I really want to. If I really want to, I can get it right there. So I would say be patient with yourself. Religion, this is a process of you shedding these beliefs that, I'm bad now. I'm not being a good Christian. I'm not being a good Catholic. And the more that you do that, the more that the spiritual side without the dogma will resonate with you. And you will just, it sounds like they're going to have to fight perhaps what others will think of them. But they will need to me, when I did this, there was no greater truth than this alignment with source. So it didn't matter to me what anybody else thought. Right. And then I think everybody addressed the heaviness well, that was brought up. But then the next one is about shadows and how to heal them. And shadow work is about what Eckhart calls the pain body. It's about limiting beliefs. It's about your pains. It's about all the areas of your life that you think that you're bad, you're not good enough, you're wrong. And how to heal them. So this is kind of actually a big question, like how to heal them. I watched a video today about the seeking that Kelly was talking about earlier, and Ryan, and about how, I myself as well have like 500 books. And I think that when you start to want to heal the shadow, that's what you do. You go and get the 500 books and you go and get the 500 videos and you do all of that, right? Because you're trying to heal whatever pains that you have. So healing the shadows is kind of a bigger question to answer. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. All you need, I can say it simply, but it's not simple. All you need to know is that you haven't done anything wrong. This is a journey. This is a process. Whatever you have been through in life, it's perfect. You're exactly where you need to be. And the minute that you can start flipping everything into pulling the gifts out of the bad, pulling the gifts out of the lessons, and using those to move you along. So all I know is that all the things that I have been through, every one of them has led me to where I am right now, which is exactly where I'm supposed to be, which is perfect. Right? So you remove the judgment. That's one way to heal the shadows, is you understand, again, that you and others behaved on their level of consciousness. That's all they had at the time. That's all they knew at the time. That's all you knew. But it was all perfectly designed for your soul evolution, for what you had to learn in this lifetime, for what you were supposed to do in this lifetime. It's all perfectly designed. So like my daughter, one of my daughters is, she had a little bit, she had a learning disability because her and I almost died at birth. And then, and she never really kind of resonated with people very well. So she never fit in like a whole lot in school. She had friends, but she didn't really fit in. So what did that do? That's part of her pain body of not really fitting in. But what did that do? That led her to animals, right? So now she's a dog groomer. She just loves all these animals. She really thinks that they're her children. Seriously. And you know what? I think so that was her lesson, and that led her to loving these animals, and she grooms animals and she takes care of them. So wherever it is that it leads you, it's the perfect, what I'm trying to say is it's the perfect thing wherever it leads you. If that means that you're going to be an animal person, that's what you had to go through to land you to be the animal person. Or maybe you're a kid person, or maybe you're a flower person. But we need all these persons in this collective. We need all these different persons, right? So take all the bad things, give it unconditional love and compassion, and figure out where that leads you. Where's your purpose at? And then let it all go and practice self-love, unconditional self-love for you and for everybody else and for the process. So there's your on-the-spot answer. And everybody else can fix where I skipped around.
Thank you so much, April. Beautiful. I feel Ryan and Kelly actually, and Louise actually, when they answered the first question where they said, shine the light on your compulsion, shine the light on your shadow, right? So our egoic pattern would be, or the ego, the way the ego works is it puts a band-aid. What Ryan was saying, right? It puts a band-aid on, okay, so in this movie, what they show is there's an accountant. He does an excellent job of being an accountant at work, but he's the one that is the person in personal life is writing bad checks. So here they show him like one part of it is he's like balancing the book perfectly for his job to down to the penny, but he doesn't know how to balance his own checkbook, right? So he must be like overspending or whatever the shadow is. So where does he need to put his light on? On his finances, on paying attention to, and then the other part they showed is somebody who he cleans his outside patio like very well. He has a Buddha statue, but the moment he opens his door, it's like the hoarder's scene where there's like dirty dishes and all kinds of, that's a shadow, right? On the outside, they're showing like a beautiful, I'm so perfectly from tip top, right, dress in a suit and everything. And my patio is like, my front yard is like perfect with statues and everything. And the moment you open the front door, it's like dirt and all the dishes, like, you know how people they show on hoarders, they have dishes lying for, it would drive Eileen's OCD crazy if there were dishes like for 2 or 3 weeks on end. And she just took a drink. Didn't mean to choke you, Eileen.
There's from the spiritual perspective, and perhaps Eckhart would, shadow means that there's something in front of the light. So if you move that darkness,
Yes.
right? But what is the light? The light is source. It is aligning. So if we get out of the way, so they would add that too, would add that in there.
Thank you, April. So my the first suggestion would be is take up a practice, which what we've been talking for the first hour, right? Get your practice to where you have a presence power, where you're about to have enough presence power to shine the light, because you're not even going to have the power. The ego will come in and say, oh, let me just get another, if you're drinking, you'll get another 3 full bottle of alcohol and it's gone, right? You'll drown yourself in drinking, or you drown yourself in eating, or you drown yourself in some Band-Aid, whatever or go to the gym and spend 4 hours at the gym, right? Or be a workaholic, we think that shows dedication and loyalty to our company, but no, that is an addiction too. That's an identification too, that I need to keep working 18, 19 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So Eileen, did you want to say something about this? Thank you, April.
I liked how you mentioned the shining the light, because what I was going to say was something that Ryan had brought up earlier, and that was, sitting with it, like the person's asking, how to heal the shadow, and instantly I came right back to that same thing, because these shadows, these things that kind of follow us and sometimes circulate and recirculate and recirculate, you don't learn that lesson, and you don't heal until you truly sit with it. And sometimes you think you have, because I've experienced that, you think you've sat with it, you think you've healed it, and it still comes back. And so a lot of the things that came up tonight all come back to that same thing, the practice and being able to just accept, letting go of that resisting and sitting with it.
You said something about forgiveness a few months back, right? You thought that you had forgiven.
Yes.
And it'll come back. So experiences of the present moment will show us that whether we've healed. That's another way as well, right?
It was more just words.
Exactly. April brought up about her mother that day, that she was abandoned, and then you were like, man, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it very vividly.
Cool. So that's what experiences of the present moment will show you your healing too, because that experience will go away. No longer will you experience the same thing, whatever the resultant action of your shadow is, what you manifest out of your shadow, that'll stop happening. So that's a way to know that you're healing. And attention is the key. Attention, attention, attention. So practice, practice, practice. Thank you, Eileen. Louise, because Kelly's going to speak for a long time. You can wrap it up.
Well, that's basically exactly what I was going to say, is these things are revealed to you in the present moment. And even, like when you think that you're done with something, like, I remember for a long time, I'm like, oh, I haven't had I used to be like constantly negative thinking, constant. And then it just kind of went away. And then all of a sudden one day I was getting, this was like probably about a year after I thought I was done with the negative thinking, and I was in the laundry room and I started saying something like, oh, I'm so sick of doing laundry. This is the 10th load I have to do today. And then I just caught myself and I was like, whoa, that was weird. Like, where did that come from? And so then I had to look at that again, and go, wow, I'm having some resistance about the laundry, and you just start looking at it and going, you know, so because of this, because of that led to this, and then now here I am in that mode of thinking negative. So what I guess I'm trying to say is that what you were saying earlier is that it is, these things do get revealed to us in that present moment. And it's, we shouldn't like go, oh, I thought, you know, I should be over that, or I've already been on this journey, you know, 2-3 years, whatever. That shouldn't come up, because we're human and these things will come up. But the good news is that each time we know how to deal with it better, you know, and then it's less and less time. And also we're not dealing with it maybe for as long, like, you know, maybe the first time that a negative thought, we were, you know, we had a lot of negativity in our minds, might take, you know, a week or 2 weeks to get through. And then each time it gets shorter and shorter and less. And so that's what I would like to add to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Louise.
Mhm.
And I feel April has brought this up maybe a month or two back, that our fundamental, the basis for all the shadow and negativity, since we are talking about negativity and shadow, is the sense of lack and incompleteness. We are born with a sense of lack and incompleteness. Eckhart uses those words. So then starts the approval seeking, right? And then it superimposes. We do another, I'm seeking approval, and the mom will hit us or the dad will hit us. So superimpose another, then we are going to do some pressing down of that emotion that we are feeling. We're not going to express to our mom or dad, I don't like you, or so we are just pushing down those feelings, right? And those pushed down feelings is what's going to come up as, oh, I hate this laundry. You actually don't hate the laundry. It's just that that feeling was pushed down, right?
Yes.
I have to laugh. I'm like, maybe we do hate the laundry. Do we? Maybe. Just saying. But also, with that point that you just made, that links back to the religion and the dogma, because we're not good enough in that religion. We are born sinners, right? We need to, right? Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. So then the religion is telling you that you're a born sinner as well, and that you'll go to hell, but there is no hell. All you're going to do is, from this life in the other realm, go to unconditional love. Look up near-death experiences. Every person that has had, who's Christian, non-Christian, whoever they can be Muslim, they can be whatever faith. When they pass away, they go to unconditional love, because that's what happens when we leave our body, is we move to unconditional love. So there is no hell. To all those Christians that think that they are sinners, that's another thought. And that's why Eckhart is teaching us disidentify, disidentify, disidentify. Lose that identification. The day that you can be, I'm not a Christian anymore, I'm just pure presence, that day is your liberation. Kelly, wrap it up. Thank you.
Where to begin? I really enjoyed listening to what everyone had to say about shadow and healing. Again, I agree. It's about shining the light of awareness on our thoughts and our feelings and the patterns and the conditioning that we hold on to and use to create our identities, and how we are used to believing in pain and suffering as normal and being disconnected from ourselves as normal. And that's where shadow comes in. That's the bridge, or the veil, if you will, between ourselves and source, the space that hides from the light, the energy, the information. There's a ton of information in shadow, shadow is not something to reject either, because when you shine your own light of awareness on your shadow, your ego, you release information about yourself. You discover information about yourself. You change your perception, and you understand that you have a lot more inside of you than you thought you did. And that there's a lot more to you and a lot more to being aware and being present than you ever could have thought possible. Now, yeah, healing shadow is an ongoing process, like every other aspect of refining being present with self. When you look at something, when you begin to become aware and you let yourself become aware of that space, you change. You can change your shadow just by looking at it, just by observing it, just by becoming aware of a pattern. Yeah, laundry. Gosh, there's a brilliant, perfect example. One of my favorite stories from Zen Buddhism. I used to read absolutely everything I possibly could about Zen Buddhism. One of my favorite stories is, I believe it was Zen Master Hakuin, Hakuin, who had a student ask him, "What is the truth of Zen?" And he simply picked up the teapot, poured himself some tea, put the teapot back, grabbed the tea, drank the tea, put the tea back down, and looked at his student. And the student was like, "What?" and he said, "Even though I'm a Zen master, I still have to pour my own tea. I still have to make my own tea. I still have to pour my own tea. I still have to get up in the morning. I still have to do all these other things in the morning, and throughout the day. It's just reality." And this is sort of, I read this in my 20s, and it's sort of one of those pivotal moments where I was just like, right, because even if I got all this information and stuff like that, I still got to get up in the morning. I still got to go to work. I still got to pay the bills, eat the food, do all these things. Life does not stop simply because we become more aware. And healing shadow is about becoming more aware. And if we're working on shadow, life does not stop. And if you have moments where you want to stop, you should really look at that. And by stop, I mean moments when you start throwing, gosh, I really hate doing the laundry moments of thought and feeling around. Or it's like, I don't want to wash these dishes. Oh my God, it's like, I can't do that. You should look at that. And that's a very, very simple. And again, Louise, thank you for the offering up the example, because again, it is such a simple but absolutely perfect example of the way shadow actually works. The way ego and shadow collaborate together to get you just slip in those little moments of like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's like, yeah, throw a little tantrum. I'm gonna be a little kid who didn't get the cereal in Walmart and throw a tantrum on the floor. It's like, that's what shadow does. That's how shadow keeps feeding itself. That's how the ego keeps feeding the patterns. And this is why a practice is so important. This is why discipline and consistency and acceptance of self is so important, because the more you accept yourself, the less fuel shadow has to burn and pretend it has the light, when really you yourself are the light.
Thank you, Kelly. One of the things I write in the book is how do we restore, in my own book, I write about how do we restore peace on the planet, right? And I have this little chart where I say okay, what is your racial identification? What is your country identification? What is your gender identification, right? You can take a piece of paper and look at your identity. What are we identifying with, right? Because that is your shadow. Because like in this movie, and I'll put that in the response to the chat, I'll put the YouTube link. It's Oprah played this movie as part of Super Soul Sunday. She interviewed Debbie Ford, who is like she's passed away. She's so late, Debbie Ford. She's done an amazing job on shadow work. I'm sure just like how Louise L. Hay has Cheryl Richardson and Marion Williamson has Gabby Bernstein, right? Like there's a younger version of the person that pioneered I'm sure she has people that actually do shadow work. So you can look up if she has a way of helping people with shadow work. But one is presence practice. Like, don't even think of your shadow. Just say, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to bring stillness. The key is alignment with inner beingness. Because the moment we get aligned, just like Louise having presence, even till today, right? So I've changed my job responsibility. Just when Louise gave that example, I thought of 3 weeks back, I was doing some spreadsheets, and I'm not a person that really loves numbers and sitting with spreadsheets all day, right? All day, like 8 hours a day. But this is my new job responsibility. So what does Eckhart say? Surrender to it, right? But you notice, like just like Louise was saying, you notice the irritation, that that unease, right? I really don't like what this is. Then I had to bring up gratitude, Eileen's favorite strategy. That I'm grateful that I have a job, like in the middle of a pandemic. I'm grateful that I have a job. So this is what is, and I don't know why the universe brought me this, but what I notice is this week, what I notice is the benefit to it is I'm left alone. Like if I were to do the job of a project manager, I'm on a conference call to another conference call to another conference call. I get more stillness in looking at the spreadsheet because I can take a few minutes and stop and go look outside at the sky or look at the trees. Whereas when you're from one conference call to another conference call, you may not get the time. So I see the benefit to even the spreadsheets. So that's what presence practice does, is allows us to see our vibrational energy at the vibrational level. Are we vibrating at loving kindness, compassion, or is this irritation coming? And the moment that slight little bit of irritation starts, we pay attention to it, like Eileen said, and it goes away. Like instant, like it's like fraction second, and you've gone back to peace, right? So until you develop a presence practice, it's not going to happen. So practice to everyone, practice. That's what we would say, right? We still didn't do our soul contracts, and back to Summer's question, April, so we'll do it next week because it's already pretty late, and I know it's getting late for Eileen. So we'll do it next week. We'll go back into what happens when we are we going to awaken when we die, and actually what is the soul? Because I don't know how many people talked about Earth School. This is Earth School, right? We were born here to learn all these patterns, these generational, and this is like how long have human beings lived? 25,000, 30,000, 50,000 years. It's patterns of 50,000 years that is on our shoulders, and we are undoing those patterns. Eckhart is teaching us, right?
I have a question for Kelly.
Sure.
Why did we start this? This is my question. I'm supposed to be this spiritual teacher, and I am a spiritual teacher, and I do help people. And I understand that we are a soul, and I understand we have life contracts and we have karma. But what I can't find the answer to is, and the Adam and Eve story never really made sense to me, doesn't make sense to me. The Satan Lucifer story doesn't make sense to me. Why did we start this? Why? Why would we separate from source? So I'll let Kelly, he'll have to either think about it. We can bring it up again. So here I am, the panelist asking a question. But that question, that is the one I can't find the answer to yet. Maybe that's the ultimate question we can't find the answer to. Why? Why would we separate from source? Why?
Maybe
Yes.
what we'll do is we'll start with this question next week. How's
And
that?
then that leads into, I think that leads into the soul contracts.
Okay.
And what is the soul, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Short, real tiny short answer. 3
Go ahead.
words. First answer, to grow. Second answer about soul contracts, yes.
Y'all are incredibly amazing. And everyone out there, thank you so much. Eternally grateful. Many blessings. Have a good night. Bye.